Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to radically shift how we think about artificial intelligence in the workplace. We're moving way, way past the obsession with those flashy demos we see every day on our feeds. And instead, we're getting our hands dirty looking at how to build durable, real-world organizational workflows. Let's just dive right in and completely upgrade our mental model of what AI actually is to an enterprise. This whole conversation actually kicked off from a very real-world frustration, brilliantly captured by Elton Willis. He hit the nail right on the head. Most AI content out there, it's still hyper-focused on tools. It's always some new model, a new app, a new prompt hack, or a tiny automation trick. And hey, that stuff is useful, sure, but it completely misses the bigger picture. The tool itself isn't the strategy. The workflow, that's the strategy. And this really gets at the core pain point so many organizations are wrestling with right now. I mean, think about it. Why do so many AI projects completely stall out somewhere between that mind-blowing demo and actual day-to-day deployment? Well, it's because we just aren't asking the right question. We aren't asking, how do we make this truly usable in real, messy, everyday conditions? We don't just need it to be productive in theory. We need it to be deeply trustworthy when the stakes are actually high. To figure that out, we've got a great roadmap for today. We're going beyond the power tool, diving into the delegation paradigm, unpacking this idea of an accountability substrate, architecting the AI role, looking out for silent failures, and finally, figuring out the ultimate guardrail.
So part one, beyond the power tool. Because honestly, treating AI as just a really smart piece of software, that is the exact root cause of our brittle, failing workflows.
Think about it. When you treat AI like a tool, like a power drill or a fancy calculator, you're locked into a very fixed contract. You put in a command, you get an output, and then you have to check it. You're operating it move by agonizing move. And in that setup, you, the human, are carrying literally 100% of the cognitive load for verification. You're reading every single word, checking every line of code, second-guessing every output. If that's what you're doing, you haven't really built a workflow. You've basically just bought yourself a power tool with a really, really impressive vocabulary. Which leads us perfectly into section 2. The delegation paradigm. This is where we see a total shift from just commanding an AI to actually delegating to it. Just look at the stark contrast between these two mindsets. On one side, you've got the tool mindset, right? You command it and you verify every single thing it does. But on the flip side, we have the role mindset. Now, a role doesn't just blindly execute commands. It owns a function. It actually exercises judgment inside a carefully defined scope. And maybe most importantly, an organizational role is relational. It knows exactly who it reports to, who it's supposed to serve, and precisely when it needs to throw up its hands and escalate a complex problem to a human.
So here is the absolute game changer. The exact moment you stop checking every single output from your AI, something fundamental shifts. The split second you let a result pass through without inspecting it line by line, you have officially stopped commanding and you've started delegating. And let me tell you, delegating judgment is a completely different ballgame than just operating a piece of software.
All right, moving to section 3, the accountability substrate. Because this brings up a massive hurdle. How do we actually build systemic trust? Why do we inherently trust human colleagues to handle delegated tasks, but absolutely sweat it when an artificial one does the same? Well, the answer lies in what's called the accountability substrate. Think about it like this. When you hand off a task to a coworker, you aren't standing over their shoulder checking every single keystroke. Why? Because they have an accountability substrate beneath them. They have a professional reputation on the line. They have a career that could take a hit. They can be promoted, demoted, or, fired. They have actual skin in the game. That underlying human risk is exactly what lets an organization trust someone's unverified judgment. But here's the rub. You can program an AI to act exactly like a specific role, sure, but it doesn't have that substrate, not even a little bit. An AI cannot be fired, it cannot be sued, it definitely doesn't feel shame, and it could not care less about getting a promotion. Because it completely lacks this natural, built-in accountability, we are left staring at a massive, glaring trust gap. So how on earth do we bridge that gap? Let's dive into section 4, architecting the AI role. We need some serious organizational design here. Because AI lacks that natural human accountability, we have to deliberately engineer proxies for trust. I mean, we're way beyond simple prompt engineering now. We're talking about structural organizational design. If you want an AI to safely hold a role, you need to explicitly build out 4 distinct pillars. The floor, the ceiling, the mirroring stance, and contextual metrics. Let's break these down one by one. First up, we've got the floor. Now, the absolutely crucial thing to understand about the floor is that it represents your hard, immutable truth. Frankly, it should be the dumbest, most rock-solid, reliable thing in your entire system. Let's say it's a specific enterprise database schema. The AI has to be hard-coded so that if it gets a query outside this floor, it natively just throws its hands up and says, nope, out of scope. It's your baseline defense against wild hallucinations, because it strictly limits the data the AI is even allowed to touch.
Next up is the ceiling. Think of this as the absolute upper limit, where the AI's agency abruptly ends. The ceiling is your tripwire. Maybe it's a hard financial threshold, like, say, any purchase order over 10 grand. Or maybe it's a really complex legal risk indicator. Whatever it is for your workflow, the ceiling is the explicit, non-negotiable point where the AI must stop, step back, and hand the reins back over to a human supervisor.
Then we have the mirroring stance, which is honestly fascinating. This defines the AI's relational posture. It dictates how the AI listens, how it breaks down inputs, and even its pacing and tone. An AI that's built to be an enterprise auditor hunting for process errors should act completely differently than one designed as a reflective facilitator, just trying to help a user brainstorm. This stance is the magic ingredient that makes the AI role feel authentically present, rather than just feeling like a sterile robotic text generator.
But listen, even with those boundaries locked in, there are still massive hidden risks. Let's hit Section 5. Beware of silent failures. There is a really dangerous tension to navigate here. When a traditional piece of software fails, it usually fails loudly, right? It crashes, it throws a giant error code, or your screen just goes black. You know immediately that it's broken. But a delegated AI role, its most dangerous failure mode is entirely smooth and completely silent. Because it has that incredible mirroring stance we just talked about, it stays perfectly in character. It sounds super professional, it uses all the right corporate jargon, but it might be quietly optimizing over corrupted or out-of-bounds data. It hands you back a confident, highly plausible, completely wrong answer that absolutely no one checks because remember, delegating meant you stopped checking. And man, that is exactly where systemic risk starts to compound.
Which brings us to our sixth and final section, the final guardrail. How do we actually resolve this systemic trust issue? It forces us to ask a really provocative question. Who guards the guard? Sure, we can build slick, lightweight classifiers to enforce our floor, and we can use uncertainty scoring to govern the ceiling. But at the end of the day, all of those automated controls are just more software components. And guess what? Those components lack an accountability substrate too. It's an infinite regress. It's literally just software turtles all the way down.
But the resolution to this infinite loop is actually quite elegant, and it brings us right back to the human element. The regress only stops when it hits a real person who actually owns the outcome. Accountability doesn't just magically vanish into the ether when you introduce an AI workflow, it simply moves up a level.
So the conclusion is pretty clear-cut. You cannot hold a machine learning model accountable. It is literally impossible. Instead, you hold the human operator who scoped the AI's authority accountable, the person who defined the floor, set the ceiling, and designed the exact handoff seam. That person is the ultimate accountability substrate. An AI workflow doesn't replace the human. It just makes that one single human's ownership of a massive, complex process tractable and scalable.
I want to leave you with this incredibly powerful thought as we wrap up our explainer today. The question was never, what can AI do? It is, what are you willing to be accountable for having delegated? Let that sink in. Once you realize that your signature, your human accountability, is the only real guardrail holding the entire system together, well, it completely changes how you build. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I really hope this leaves you completely rethinking your organization's AI strategy.